Namaste, my dear friends. This is video number 27 on Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. This video starts with chapter number 25, Three Kinds of Bhakti. Pandit, by what kind of bhakti does one realize God? Master, Sri Ramakrishna. Three kinds of bhakti are found according to the nature of the man: Sattvic bhakti, Rajasic bhakti, and Tamasic bhakti. Sattvic bhakti is known to God alone. It makes no outward display. A man with such devotion loves privacy. Perhaps he meditates inside the mosquito net where nobody sees him. When this kind of devotion is awakened, one has not long to wait for the vision of God. The appearance of the dawn in the east shows that the sun will rise before long. A man with Rajasic bhakti feels like making a display of his devotion before others. He worships the deity with 16 ingredients, enters the temple wearing a silk cloth, and puts around his neck a string of Rudraksha beads interspersed here and there with beads of gold and ruby. A man with Tamasic bhakti shows the courage and boisterousness of a highway robber. A highway robber goes on his expedition openly, shouting, "Kill, plunder." He is not afraid even of 8 police inspectors. The devotee with Tamasic bhakti also shouts like a madman, "Hara, Hara, Vyam, Vyam, victory to Kali." He has great strength of mind and burning faith. A Sakta has such faith. He says, "What? I have uttered once the name of Kali and of Durga. I have uttered once the name of Rama. Can there be any sin in me?" The Vaishnavas have a very humble and lowly attitude. Looking at Balram's father, they tell their rosary and whine and whimper, "O Krishna, be gracious to us. We are wretched, we are sinners. Faith in God's name." A man should have such fiery faith as to be able to say, "I have uttered the name of God. How can I be a sinner?" Imagine a man repeating the name of Hari day and night and at the same time saying that he is a sinner. So saying, Sri Ramakrishna became overwhelmed with divine ecstasy and saying, "If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O Blessed One, withhold from me deliverance? Wretched though I may be, I may have stolen a drink of wine, or killed a child unborn, or slain a woman or a cow, or even caused a Brahmin's death. But though it all be true, nothing of this can make me feel the least uneasiness, for through the power of thy sweet name, my wretched soul may still aspire even to Brahmanhood." He sang again, "Behold my mother playing with Shiva, lost in an ecstasy of joy, drunk with draught of celestial wine. She reels and yet she does not fall. Erect she stands on Shiva's bosom, and the earth trembles under her tread. She and her lord are mad with frenzy, casting aside all fear and shame. Pandit Sasadhar was weeping. Vaishnavacharn the musician sang, O tongue, always repeat the name of Mother Durga. Who but your Mother Durga will save you in distress? Thou art the heavens and the earth, and thou the nether world. From thee have the 12 Gopalas, and Hari and Shiva sprung. The 10 embodiments of divine Shakti art thou, and thou the 10 avatars. This time save me thou must. The moving and the unmoving, the gross and the subtle art thou, creation and preservation art thou, and the last dissolution. Thou art the primal root of this manifold universe, the mother of the three worlds, their only Saviour art thou. Thou art the Shakti of all, and thou thine own Shakti too. As the master listened to the last few lines, he went into an ecstatic mood. The master himself sang, O mother, for Yasoda, thou wouldst dance when she called thee her precious blue jewel. Where hast thou hidden that lovely form, O terrible Shama? Dance that way once for me, O mother. Throw down thy sword and take the flute. Cast off thy garland of hats and wear thy wildflower garland. If without Shiva thou canst not dance, then let Balarama be thy Shiva. Dance, O Shama, as thou didst dance when thou wast Krishna. Mother, play on thy flute again, once so full of delight for the gopis. Play again on the magic flute which called the cattle in front of the pasture, stopping the Jamuna's murmuring flow and turning it backward. Hot in the sky, the sun would burn when Yashoda, restless for her Krishna, fondly would call, Here, my Gopala, cream and butter eat them, my darling, and she would comb his long black hair and carefully braid it, bending thy supple body, mother, both at the neck, the waist, and the knee. Thou didst dance with thy friend Sri Dama, while thy two anklets played the music ta thaya, ta thaya, ta thaya thaya. Hearing their captivating sound, the gopis would rush there. Again Pandit Sasadhar shed tears of love. Sri Ramakrishna came down to consciousness of the world. Pointing to Sasadhar, he said to M, Why don't you prod him? He wanted M or some other devotees to ask Sasadhar a question. Ramdayal to Sasadhar. The scriptures speak of Brahma's form as a projection of mind. Who is it that projects Sasadhar? It is Brahma itself that does so. It is no projection of a man's mind. Pratap, why does Brahma project the form? Master, you ask why. Brahma does not act in consultation with others. It is Brahma's pleasure. Brahma is self-willed. Why should we try to know the reason for Brahma's acting this way or that? You have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Eat the mangoes. What is the good of calculating how many trees there are in the orchard, how many thousands of branches, and how many millions of leaves? One cannot realize the truth by futile arguments and reasoning. Pratap, should not we reason any more than Master? I am asking you not to indulge in futile reasoning, but reason by all means about the real and the unreal, about what is permanent and what is transitory. You must reason when you are overcome by lust, anger, or grief. Shashadhar, that is different. It is called reasoning based on discrimination. Master, yes, discrimination between the real and the unreal. All sat in silence. Again the master spoke, addressing the Pandit. Master, formerly many great men used to come here. Shashadhar, you mean rich people? Master, no great scholars. In the meantime, the small car of Jagannath had been brought to the veranda. Inside the car were the images of Krishna, Balrama, and Subhadra. They were adorned with flowers, garlands, jewelry, and yellow apparel. Balram was a Sattvic worshipper. There was no outward grandeur in his worship. Outsiders did not even know of this car festival at his house. The master and the devotees went to the veranda. Sri Ramakrishna pulled the car by the rope. Then he began to sing. See how all Nadia is shaking under the waves of Gauranga's love. He sang again, Behold, the two brothers have come who weep while chanting Hari's name. The brothers who in return for blows offer to sinners Hari's love. Sri Ramakrishna danced with the devotees. The musician and his party joined the master in the music and dancing. Soon the whole veranda was filled with people. The ladies witnessed this scene of joy from an adjoining room. It appeared as if Chaitanya himself were dancing with his devotees, intoxicated with divine love. It was not yet dusk. Sri Ramakrishna returned to the drawing room with the devotees. Master to Shashadhar, this is called Bhajanananda, the bliss of devotees in the worship of God. Worldly people keep themselves engrossed in the joy of sensuous objects of woman and gold. Through worship, devotees receive the grace of God and then His vision. Then they enjoy Brahmananda, the bliss of Brahma. Sasadhar and the devotees listen to these words with rapt attention. Sasadhar humbly, Sir, please tell us what kind of yearning gives one this blissful state of mind. Master, one feels restless for God when one's soul longs for his vision. The Guru said to the disciple, Come with me, I shall show you what kind of longing will enable you to see God. Saying this, he took the disciple to a pond and pressed his head under the water. After a few moments, he released the disciple and asked, How did you feel? The disciple answered, Oh, I felt as if I were dying. I was longing for a breath of air. Shashadhar. Yes, that's it. I understand it now. Master, to love God is the essence of the whole thing. Bhakti alone is the essence. Narada said to Rama, May I always have pure love for your lotus feet and may I not be deluded by your world bewitching Maya. Rama said to him, ask for some other boon. No, said Narada, I don't want anything else. May I have love for your lotus feet. This is my only prayer. Pandit Sasadhar was ready to leave. Sri Ramakrishna asked a devotee to bring a carriage for the Pandit. Sasadhar, don't trouble yourself, I shall walk. Master smiling, oh, how can that be? You are beyond the reach of even Brahma's meditation. Sasadhar, there is no particular need of my going just now. The only thing is that I shall have to perform my sandhya. Master, the Divine Mother has taken away my sandhya and other devotions. The purpose of the sandhya is to purify body and mind. I am no longer in that state. The Master sang the following lines of a song. When will you learn to lie, O mind, in the abode of blessedness, with cleanliness and defilement on either side of you? While when you have found the way to keep these wives contentedly under a single roof, will you behold the matchless form of Mother Shama? Pandit Sasadhar saluted the master and went away. Ram, I visited Sasadhar yesterday. You asked me to. Master, did I? I do not remember, but it is nice that you went. Ram, the editor of a newspaper was abusing you. Master, suppose he was. What does it matter? Ram, please listen. Then I began to talk to the editor about you. He wanted to hear more and would not let me go. It was dusk. Sri Ramakrishna began to chant the name of the Divine Mother, Krishna, Rama, and Hari. The devotees sat in silence. The master chanted the names in such sweet tones that the hearts of the devotees were deeply touched. That day Balram's house was like Navadip when Chaitanya lived there. On the veranda it was like Navadip, and in the parlor it was like Vrindavan. That same night Sri Ramakrishna was to go to Dakshineswar. Balram took him into the inner apartments and served him with the refreshments. The ladies of the family saluted the master. The devotees were singing kirtan in the drawing room, awaiting the master's coming. Presently, Sri Ramakrishna came and joined the singers. The kirtan went on. Behold, my Gora is dancing with the devotees. He dances in Sriva's courtyard singing the kirtan. Gora says to all, repeat the name of Hari. He looks at Gadadhar and from his red eyes are flowing tears of love over his golden body. The master improvised the lines. Gora is dancing in the kirtan. There he dances Sachi's darling. There he dances my Gauranga. There he dances my soul's beloved. Chapter number 26, Festival at Adhar's House, Sunday, August 1884. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in his room in the temple garden at Dakshineswar after his midday meal. A party of bowls from Shivpur, several devotees from Bhawanipur, Balram and N were in the room. Rakhal, Latu and Harish were then living with the master. They too were present. The master began the conversation by addressing the bowl musicians from Shivpur, Yoga and the six centers. Master, yoga is not possible if the mind dwells on woman and gold. The mind of a worldly man generally moves among the three lower centers, those at the navel, at the sexual organ, and at the organ of evacuation. After great effort and spiritual practice, the Kundalini is awakened. According to the yogis, there are three nerves in the spinal column, Ida, Pingala, and Susumna. Along the Susumna are six lotuses or centers, the lowest being known as the Mooladhara. Then come successively Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Visuddha, and Agyana. These are the six centers. The Kundalini, when awakened, passes through the lower centers and come to the Anahata, which is at the heart. It stays there. At that time, the mind of the aspirant is withdrawn from the three lower centers. He feels the awakening of divine consciousness and sees light. In mute wonder, he sees that radiance and cries out, "What is this? What is this?" After passing through the six centers, the Kundalini reaches the thousand petaled lotus known as the Sahasra, Sahasrara, and the aspirant goes into Samadhi. According to the Vedas, these centers are called Bhumi, plains. There are seven such plains. The center at the heart corresponds to the fourth plane of the Vedas. According to the Tantra, there is in this center a lotus called Anhata with 12 petals. The center known as Visuddha is the fifth plane. This center is at the throat and has a lotus with 16 petals. When the Kundalini reaches this plane, the devotee longs to talk and hear only about God. Conversation on worldly subjects, on woman and gold, causes him great pain. He leaves a place where people talk of these matters. Then comes the sixth plane, corresponding to the center known as Ajna. Ajna. This center is located between the eyebrows and it has a lotus with two petals. When the Kundalini reaches it, the aspirant sees the form of God, but still there remains a slight barrier between the devotee and God. It is like a light inside a lantern. You may think you have touched the light, but in reality you cannot because of the barrier of glass. And last of all is the seventh plane, which according to Tantra is the center of the thousand petaled lotus. When the Kundalini arrives there, the aspirant goes into Samadhi. In that lotus dwells Satya Chitananda Shiva, the Absolute. There Kundalini, the awakened power, unites with Shiva. This is known as the union of Shiva and Shakti. The state of Samadhi, when the Kundalini rises to the Sahasrara and the mind goes into Samadhi, the aspirant loses all consciousness of the outer world. He can no longer retain his physical body. If milk is poured into his mouth, it runs out again. In that state, the life breath lingers for 21 days and then passes out. Entering the black waters of the ocean, the ship never comes back. But the Ishwar Kotis, such as the incarnations of God, can come down from this state of Samadhi. They can descend from this exalted state because they like to live in the company of devotees and enjoy the love of God. God retains in them the ego of knowledge or the ego of devotion. so that they may teach man. Their minds move between the sixth and the seventh planes. They run a boat race back and forth, as it were, between these two planes, keeping individuality after samadhi. After attaining samadhi, some souls of their own accord keep the ego of knowledge, but that ego does not create any attachment. It is like a line drawn on the water. Hanuman kept the servant ego after realizing God in both his personal and his impersonal aspects. He thought of himself as the servant of God. The great sages such as Narada, Sanka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara, after attaining the knowledge of Brahma, kept the servant ego and the ego of devotion. They are like big steam, steamships which not only cross the ocean themselves but carry many passengers to the other shore. Two classes of Paramahamsas. There are two classes of Paramahamsas, one affirming the formless reality and the other affirming God with form. Trelanga Swami believed in the formless reality. Paramahamsas like him care for their own good alone. They feel satisfied if they themselves attain the goal. Paramahamsas as teachers of man, but those Paramahamsas who believe in God with form keep the love of God even after attaining the knowledge of Dharma so that they may teach spiritual truth to others. They are like a pitcher brimful of water. Part of the water may be poured into another pitcher. These perfected souls describe to others the various spiritual disciplines by which they have realized God. They do this only to teach others and to help them in spiritual life. With great effort, men dig a well for drinking water, using spades and baskets for the purpose. After the digging is over, some throw the spades and other implements into the well, not needing them anymore. But some put them away near the well so that others may use them. Some eat mangoes secretly and remove all trace of them by wiping their mouths with a towel, but some share the fruit with others. There are sages who, even after attaining knowledge, work to help others and also to enjoy the bliss of God in the company of devotees. I want to eat sugar, I do not want to be sugar. The gopis of Vrindavan too attained the knowledge of Dharma, but they were not seeking it. They wanted to enjoy God, looking on themselves as his mother, his friend, his handmaid, or his lover. The bowls from Sipur began to sing to the accompaniment of a stringed instrument. A line in the first song was, "We are sinners, redeem us, O merciful Lord." Master to the devotees, it is the attitude of a beginner to worship God out of fear. Please sing about God realization songs expressing divine joy to Rahul. How well they sang that song the other day at Nabin Nyogi's house. Be drunk, O mind, be drunk with the wine of heavenly bliss. While singing religious songs, one should not constantly refer to one's worries. One should rather feel joyous and ecstatic as one chants God's name. A devotee, sir, won't you sing? Master, what shall I sing? Well, I may sing when the Spirit moves me. Master sings of the divine joy. After a few minutes, the master began to sing. His eyes were turned upward. He sang, "Behold the waves of Gora's ecstatic love." Under them all the universe lies submerged, and in his love I too long to be drowned. O friend, Gauranga's love has swallowed me. Who else feels for our misery like Gauranga, dragging us from the mire of worldliness? He sang again, dive deep, O mind, dive deep in the ocean of God's beauty. If you descend to the uttermost depths, there you will find the gem of love. Then he sang about the Divine Mother. Can everyone have the vision of Shama? Is Kali's treasure for everyone? Oh, what a pity, my foolish mind will not see what is true. He continued, the black bee of my mind is drawn in sheer delight to the blue lotus flower of Mother Shama's feet. And again, O Mother, what a machine is this that thou hast made? What pranks thou playest with this toy, 3.5 cubits high. As Sri Ramakrishna sang the last song, he went into Samadhi. The devotee sat speechless, gazing at his radiant finger. After some time, he regained partial consciousness of the world and began to talk to the Divine Mother. The Master said, Mother, please come down from up there. Did he feel his mind still lingering in the seventh plane of consciousness, the thousand-petaled lotus of the Sahasrara? Please to come down, he said. Don't torment me that way. Be still, mother, and sit down. Oh, mother, everybody's future is determined by the tendencies of his previous births. What shall I say to these people? Nothing can be achieved without discrimination and renunciation. Renunciation true and false. Sri Ramakrishna had now regained full consciousness of the world, and he continued, there are many kinds of renunciation. One of them may be called Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. It is a false renunciation stimulated by the afflictions of the world. That renunciation doesn't last long. Then there is real renunciation. A man with everything in the world lacking nothing feels all to be unreal. It is not possible to acquire renunciation all at once. The time factor must be taken into account. But it is also true that a man should hear about it. When the right time comes, he will say to himself, oh, yes, I heard about this. You must also remember another thing. By constantly hearing about renunciation, one's desire for worldly objects gradually wears away. One should take rice water in small doses to get rid of the intoxication of liquor. When one gradually becomes normal, an aspirant entitled to the knowledge of God is very rare. It is said in the Gita that one in thousands desire to know God, and again that among thousands who have such a desire, only one is able to know him. A devotee quoted the text from the Gita. Master, as your attachment to the world diminishes, your spiritual knowledge will increase. Attachment to the world means attachment to woman and gold. Prema, the rarest love of God. It is not given to everybody to feel prema, ecstatic love of God. Chaitanya experienced it. An ordinary man can at the most experience bhava. Only the Ishwar Kotis, such as divine incarnations, experience prema. When prema is awakened, the devotees not only feels the world to be unreal, but forgets even the body, which everyone loves so intentionally. In a Persian book, it is said that inside the skin is the flesh, inside the flesh the bone, inside the bone the marrow, and so on. But that prema is the innermost of all. One becomes soft and tender through prema. On account of this prema, Krishna became Tribhanga. Prema is the rope by which you can tether God as it were. Whenever you want to see Him, you have merely to pull the rope. Whenever you call Him, He will appear before you. The mature stage of bhakti is bhava. When one attains it, one remains speechless. Thinking of Satyachit Ananda thing, the feeling of an ordinary man can go only that far. When bhava ripens, it becomes Mahabhava. Prema is the last. You know the difference between a green mango and a ripe one. Unalloyed love of God is the essential thing. All else is unreal. Once Rama was pleased with the prayer of Narada and told him to ask for a boon. Narada prayed for pure love and said further, O Rama, please grant that I may not be deluded by thy world bewitching Maya. Rama said, that is all right, but ask for something else. Narada replied, I don't want anything else. I pray only for pure love. How to attain pure love of God? How can a devotee attain such love? First, the company of holy men. That awakens Shraddha, faith in God. Then comes Nishtha, single-minded devotion to the ideal. In that stage, the devotee does not like to hear anything but talk about God. He performs only those acts that please God. After Nishtha comes Bhakti, devotion to God, then comes Bhava, next Mahabhava, then Prema, and last of all the attainment of God Himself. Only for Ishwar Kotis such as the incarnations is it possible to have Mahabhava or Prema. How to attain pure love of God? The knowledge of a worldly person, the knowledge of a devotee, and the knowledge of an incarnation are by no means of the same degree. The knowledge of a worldly person is like the light of an oil lamp, which shows only the inside of a room. Through such knowledge he eats and drinks, attends to household duties, protects his body, brings up his children, and so on. The knowledge of a devotee is like the light of the moon, which illumines objects both inside and outside a room. But such light does not enable him to see a distance or a very minute object. The knowledge of an incarnation of God is like the light of the sun. Through that light, the incarnation sees everything inside and outside, big and small. The mind of a worldly person is, no doubt, like muddy water, but it can be made clear by a purifying agent. Discrimination and renunciation are the purifying agent. The Master spoke to the devotees from Sippur. Master, have you any questions to ask a devotee? We have listened to your words. The time factor in spiritual progress. Master, yes, it is good to listen to these things, but nothing will happen except at the right time. What can quinine do for a fever patient when he runs a high temperature? Only when his temperature comes down through the use of fever mixture or a purgative should quinine be prescribed. There are patients who get rid of their fever even without a quinine. A child said to his mother when he was put to bed, "Mother, please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." The mother said, "My child, I shall not have to wake you. The earth itself will wake you." Different kinds of people come here. Some come by boat with the devotees, but they do not enjoy spiritual talk. They keep nudging their friends and whispering, "When shall we leave here? When we are going?" If the friends show no sign of getting up, they say, "We would rather wait for you in the boat." Those who have a human body for the first time need the experience of sense enjoyments. Spiritual consciousness is not awakened unless certain duties have been performed. The master was going to the pine grove. With a smile, he said to M on the semicircular porch, "Well, what do you think of my state of mind?" And smiling. "On the surface of you are very simple, but inwardly very deep. It is extremely difficult to understand you." Master smiling. "True, it is like the cement floor of a house. People see only the outer surface and do not know how many materials there are under it." It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Balram and several other devotees got into a country boat to return to Calcutta. It was ebb tide in the Ganges. A gentle breeze was blowing from the south, covering the bosom of the sacred river with ripples, and looked at the scene a long time. As the boat disappeared in the direction of Calcutta, he came back to the master. Sri Ramakrishna was going to the pine grove. A beautiful dark rain cloud was to be seen in the northwest. The master asked M, "Do you think it will rain? Please bring my umbrella." M brought the umbrella. Reaching the Panchavati, the master said to Latu, who also accompanied him, "Why do you look so sickly?" "Latu, I can hardly eat anything, master." "Is that the only reason? It is also a bad time of the year. Are you meditating too much?" To M, "I have a request to make of you. Please tell Baburam to stay with me a day or two during Rakhal's absence. Otherwise, I shall feel very unhappy." M, "Yes, sir, I shall tell him." Sri Ramakrishna asked M whether he thought that Baburam was joyless. Presently, the master left them, going in the direction of the pine trees. After a few minutes, M and Latu, standing in the Panchavati, saw the master coming back towards them. Behind him, the sky was black with the rain cloud. Its reflection in the Ganges made the water darker. The disciples felt that the Master was God incarnate, a divine child 5 years old, radiant with the smile of innocence and purity. Around him were the sacred trees of the Panchavati, under which he had practiced spiritual discipline and had beheld visions of God. At his feet flowed the sacred river Ganges, the destroyer of man's sins. The presence of this God-man charged the trees, shrubs, flowers, plants, and temples with spiritual fervor and divine joy. Sri Ramakrishna returned to his room and sat on the small couch. He began to praise a medicine that a certain brahmachari had prepared for him. Referring to this man, Hazra said, he is now entangled in many worldly anxieties. What is saying? Look at Nabai Chaitanya of Nagar. Though a householder, he has put on a red cloth. Master, what shall I say? I clearly see that it is God Himself who has assumed all these human forms. Therefore, I cannot take anybody to task. Hajra, Narendra is again involved in a lawsuit. Master, he doesn't believe in Shakti, the Divine Mother. If one assumes a human body, one must recognize her. Hazra, Narendra says, if I believed in Shakti, all would follow me. Therefore, I cannot, Master. But it is not good for him to go to the extreme of denying the Divine Mother. He is now under Shakti's jurisdiction. Even a judge, while giving evidence in a case, comes down and stands in the witness box. To M. Have you seen Narendra lately? M. Not during the last few days. Master, see him and bring him here in a carriage. To Hazra, well, what is his relation to this meaning himself? Hazra, he expects help from you. Master, and what about Bhavnath? Would he come here so frequently if he did not have good tendencies? What about Harish and Latu? They always meditate. Why is that? Hazra, that is right. Why should they devote all their time to meditation? It is quite a different thing for them to stay here to attend to your personal needs. Master, possibly you are right. Perhaps others may take their place now. Hazra left the room, leaving the master alone with M. Master, does what I say in the state of ecstasy attract people? M. Oh, yes, very much. Master, what do people think of me? Do they think anything in particular about me when they see me in that condition? M. We feel in you a wonderful synthesis of knowledge, love, and renunciation, and on the surface a natural spontaneity. Many divine experiences have passed like huge steamboats through the deep of your inner consciousness. Still, you maintain outwardly this utter simplicity. Many cannot understand it, but a few are attracted by this state alone. Master, there is a sect of Vaishnavas known as the Ghospara who describe God as the Sahaja, the simple one. They say further that a man cannot recognize the simple one unless he too is simple. To M, have I any ego? M, yes sir, a little. You have kept it to preserve your body and to enjoy divine love in the company of devotees and impart spiritual knowledge to them. Further, you have kept this trace of ego by praying to the Divine Mother for it. Master, no, I have not kept it. It is God Himself who has left it in me. Can you tell me how I appear in the state of Samadhi? And as you said a little while ago, you see the form of God when your mind rises to the sixth plane. When you speak after that, your mind comes down to the fifth plane. Master, it is God who does all these things. I do not know anything. And that is why you attract people so much. Sir, I have a question to ask. There are two opinions in the scriptures. According to one Purana, Krishna is Chidatma, the Absolute, and Radha is Chit Shakti. It's a divine power. But according to another, Krishna himself is Kali, the primordial energy master. This second view is held in the Devi Purana. According to it, Kali herself has become Krishna. But what difference does it make? God is infinite, and infinite are the ways to reach Him. M remained speechless with wonder for a few moments and then said, "Oh, now I understand. As you say, the important thing is to climb to the roof. Our goal will be achieved if we can accomplish it by following any of the means, a rope or a pole. Master, it is through the grace of God that you have understood that without His grace, doubt is never cleared up. Master teaches and the important thing is somehow to cultivate devotion to God and love for Him. What is the use of knowing many things? It is enough to cultivate love of God by following any of the paths. When you have this love, you are sure to attain God. Afterwards, if it is necessary, God will explain everything to you and tell you about the other paths as well. It is enough for you to develop love of God. You have no need of many opinions and discussions. You have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Enjoy them to your heart's content. You do not need to count the branches and leaves on the trees. It is wise to follow the attitude of Hanuman. I do not know the day of the week, the phase of the moon, or the position of the stars. I only contemplate Rama. And I now desire that my activities may be much reduced and that I may devote myself greatly to God. Master, certainly your desire will be fulfilled, but a jnani can live unattached in the world. And true, sir, but one needs a special power to lead an unattached life. Master, that is also true, but perhaps you wanted the worldly life. Krishna had been enshrined in Radha's heart, but Radha wanted to sport with him in human form. Hence, all the episodes of Vrindavan. Now you should pray to God that your worldly duties may be reduced, and you will achieve the goal if you renounce mentally. But mental renunciation is prescribed for those who cannot give up the world outwardly. For superior devotees, total renunciation is enjoined both outer and inner. Sri Ramakrishna was silent a few minutes and then resumed the conversation. Master, how do you like what I said about renunciation a little while ago? And very much, sir. Master, tell me what is the meaning of renunciation? And renunciation does not mean simply dispassion for the world. It means dispassion for the world and also longing for God. Master, you are right. You no doubt need money for your worldly life, but don't worry too much about it. The wise course is to accept what comes of its own accord. Don't take too much trouble to save money. Those who surrender their hearts and souls to God, those who are devoted to Him and have taken refuge in Him, do not worry much about money. As they earn, so they spend. The money comes in one way and goes out the other. This is what the Gita describes as accepting what comes of its own accord. The master referred to Haripada and said, "He came here the other day, and he knows how to sing the stories of the Purana. He sings melodiously about the life of Prahlada and the native of Sri Krishna. Master, is that so? That day I looked into his eyes. They had an inward look. I asked him whether he meditated a great deal, but he said with his eyes cast down and did not answer. Then I said to him, "Look here, don't strain yourself too much." It was now dusk. Sri Ramakrishna, as was usual with him during this part of the day, chanted the names of God and turned his mind to contemplation. Soon the moon rose in the sky, the temple's courtyards and trees were bathed in its silvery light, and millions of broken moons played on the rippling surface of the Ganges. Rakhal and M were with the master in his room. Master to M. Baburam says, "Oh, the worldly life, God forbid." And his opinion is based on mere hearsay. What does he know of the world? He is a mere child. Master, yes, that is true. Have you noticed Niranjan? He is utterly artless. And yes, sir, his very appearance attracts people. How expressive his eyes are, master. Not only his eyes, but his entire person. His relatives proposed that he marry. At this, he said, "Why are you going to drown me?" With a smile, "Tell me this. People say that a man finds great pleasure in the company of his wife after the hard work of the day, and that is no doubt true of those who think that way." To Rakhal, with a smile, "We are now being examined. This is a leading question." Both Rakhal and M were married. Master, with a smile. A mother says, "I shall heave a sigh of relief if I can procure a shade tree for my son. He will rest in its shade when scorched by the heat of the world." And true, sir, but there are parents and parents. A father who is spiritually illumined does not give his children in marriage. If he does, his is a fine spirituality. Adhar Sen arrived from Calcutta and saluted the master. After a few minutes, he went to the temple of Kali, where M followed him. A little later, M was sitting at the bathing ghat on the Ganges. The flood tide had just set in. As he listened to the waters lapping against the bank, many pictures of Sri Ramakrishna's divine life flitted before his mind. The master's deep samadhi, his constant ecstasy, his joy in the love of God, his untiring discourse on spiritual life, his genuine love for the devotees, and above all, his childlike simplicity. Who was this man? Was it God who had embodied himself on earth for the sake of his devotees? Adhar and M returned to the master's room. Adhar had been to Chittagong in East Bengal on official duty. He was telling the master about his visit to the Chandranath Hills and Sitakunda, sacred places of Chittagong. Adhar, near Sitakunda, I visited a well where I saw fire in the water. I saw fire in the water. It is always burning on the water with the leaping tongues. Master, how is that possible? Adhar, the water contains phosphorus. Presently, Ram Chatterjee entered the room. The master said some kind words about him to Adhar. Master, Ram's presence in the temple garden has relieved us of many anxieties. He searches out Harish, Latu, and the others at mealtime. Very often they are absorbed in meditation in some corner of the temple garden. It is Ram who sees that they eat at the proper time. Saturday, September 6, 1884. Master at Adhar's house. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna was seated in Adhar's parlor on the second floor. Narendra, the Mukherjee brothers, Bhavnath, M. Hajra, and other devotees were with the master. Arrangements were being made for Narendra to sing. While he was turning the Tanpura, one of the strings snapped, and the master exclaimed, "Oh, what have you done?" Narendra then turned the drums. The master said to him, "You are beating that drum, and I feel as if someone were slapping my cheek." Referring to the Kirtan, Narendra said, "There is not much rhythm in the Kirtan. That's why it is so popular and people love it so much." Master, how silly! People like it because it is so tender and full of pathos. Narendra's music, Narendra sang, "Sweet is thy name, a refuge of the humble. It falls like sweetest nectar on our ears and comforts us, beloved of our souls." He sang again, "O Lord, must all my days pass by so utterly in vain? Down the path of hope I gaze with longing day and night. Thou art the Lord of all the worlds, and I but a beggar here. How can I ask of thee to come and dwell within my heart? My poor heart's humble cottage door is standing open wide. By gracious Lord, and enter there but once and quench its thirst." Master to Hajra smiling. "That was the first song he sang for me." Narendra sang one or two more songs. Then Vaishnavacharn sang, describing the grief of the gopis at the sight of Krishna as king of Mathura. "O Hari, how shall we know you now? In Mathura's royal splendor, you have forgotten us. Master, won't you sing that one? O Veena, sing Lord Hari's name." Vaishnava Charan sang, "O Veena, sing Lord Hari's name. Without the blessing of his feet, you cannot know the final truth. The name of Hari slays all grief. Sing Hari's name, sing Krishna's name. If only Hari shows his grace, then I shall never be distressed. O Veena, sing his name but once. No earthly gem is half so rare." Govinda says, "In vain my days have passed. No longer may I float here in life's trackless ocean waste." While listening to the song, the master became abstracted. Saying, "Ahmi, Ahmi," he went into Samadhi. The devotees were sitting around him, their eyes riveted to him. The room was filled with people. Master in ecstasy, the musician sang again. As he improvised new lines describing ecstatic love of God, the master stood up and danced. He himself improvised lines and sang them with outstretched arms. Soon he went into Samadhi and sat down with his head resting on the bolster in front of him. The musician was also carried away with emotion and sang new songs. Sri Ramakrishna again stood up and began to dance. The devotees could not control themselves. They too danced with the master. While dancing, Sri Ramakrishna every now and then went into deep samadhi. When he was in the deepest samadhi, he could not utter a word, and his whole body remained transfixed. The devotees danced and circling him. After a while, regaining partial consciousness, he danced with the strength of a lion intoxicated with ecstatic love. But even then he could not utter a word. Finally, regaining more of the consciousness of the world, he sang again, improvising the lines. An intense spiritual atmosphere was created in Adhar's parlor. At the sound of the loud music, a large crowd had gathered in the street. Sri Ramakrishna danced a long time in the company of the devotees. When he resumed his seat, still lingered with the lingering glow of divine fervor, tinged with the lingering glow of divine fervor, he asked Narendra to sing, O Mother, make me mad with thy love. Narendra sang, O Mother, make me mad with thy love. What need have I of knowledge or reason, Master, and that one upon the sea of blissful awareness? Narendra sang, upon the sea of blissful awareness, waves of ecstatic love arise, rapture, divine play of God's bliss. Oh, how enthralling! Master, and that one too in wisdom's firmament. Perhaps it is too long. Do you think so? All right, sing it slowly. Narendra sang, in wisdom's firmament the moon of love is rising full, and love's flood tide is surging waves in flowing everywhere. O Lord, how full of bliss thou art, victory unto thee, Master. And won't you sing that one? The wine of heavenly bliss. Narendra sang, be drunk, O mind, be drunk with the wine of heavenly bliss. Roll on the ground and weep, chanting Hari's sweet name. Fill the arching heavens with your deep line roar, singing Hari's sweet name with both your arms upraised, dance in the name of Hari and give his name to all. Swim by day and by night in the bliss of Hari's love. Slay desire with his name and blessed by your life. The master improvised, be drunk with prema and weep, chanting Hari's sweet name, and be mad with divine fervor and weep, chanting his name. Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees rested a while. Narendra said to the master in a low voice, will you kindly sing that one? Master, my voice has become a little hoarse. After a few minutes he asked Narendra, which one? Narendra, God whose beauty delights the world. Sri Ramakrishna sang, describing the beauty of Sri Chaitanya, who has brought God to Nadia. God whose beauty delights the world. His face covered with ringlets of hair shines like lightning again a dark cloud. Again he sang, this time about the grief of a gopi at her separation from Sri Krishna. I have not found my Krishna, O friend. How cheerless my home without him. Ah, if Krishna could only be the hair upon my head, carefully I should braid it then and deck it with bakul flowers. Carefully I should fashion the braids out of my Krishna hair. Krishna is black and black is my hair, black would be one with black. Ah, if Krishna could only be the ring I wear in my nose, always from my nose he would hang and my two lips could touch him. But it can never be, alas, why should I idly dream? Why should Krishna care at all to be the ring in my nose? Ah, if Krishna could only be the bracelets on my arms, always he would cling to my wrist and proudly I should walk, shaking my bracelets to make them sound, shaking my arms to show them. Down the king's highway I should walk wearing my Krishna's bracelets. The music was over. The master began to talk with the devotees. Master smiling, Hajra danced. Narendra, yes, a little. Master, a little? Narendra, yes, his belly danced to all laugh. Pandit Sasadhar's host had been thinking of inviting the master for dinner. Master, I have heard that his host is not an honest man, he is immoral. Narendra, that is why you did not drink the water he touched. It happened the first day you met Sasadharj at his house. How did you come to know he was immoral? Master smiling, Hajra knows of another instance. It happened at Sihor in Herday's house. Hajra, the man was a Vaishnava. He came with me to see you, meaning Sri Ramakrishna. As soon as he sat in front of you, you turned your back on him. Master, we learned later that he led an immortal life. To Narendra, you used to say at first that these were all hallucinations. Narendra, how was I to know? Now I see that you are always right. Adar had prepared a feast for the master and the devotees, and now he invited them to the meal. The master said to the Mukherjee brothers, what won't you eat? They said humbly, please excuse us, master. But why? You are doing everything else. Why this hesitation only about eating the meal? Adhar was a low caste Hindu, therefore, some of the master's Brahmin devotees hesitated to eat at his house. They came to their senses at last when they saw Sri Ramakrishna himself eating. It was about 9 o'clock. The master was resting in the drawing room with the devotees. He would soon leave for Dakshineswar. The Mukherjee brothers had arranged with a singer of Kirtan to entertain the master the following day. Ram was taking singing lessons from this musician. Sri Ramakrishna asked Narendra to come to Dakshineswar to hear the Kirtan. Master to Narendra, come tomorrow, won't you? Narendra, I shall try, sir. Master, you can bathe there and also take your meal. Pointing to M, he may dine there too. To M, are you quite well now? I hope you are not on a diet. M, no, sir, I shall come. Nitya Gopal was living at Vrindavan. Chunilal had returned from Vrindavan only a few days before, and the master inquired about Nitya Gopal. As Sri Ramakrishna was about to leave, M saluted him and touching the master's feet with his forehead, the master said to him tenderly, then I shall see you tomorrow. Narendra Bhavnath, please come tomorrow. Then with several devotees he set out for Dakshineswar. The other devotees returned home in the moonlight night, cherishing in their hearts the master's ecstatic music and dancing. At this point I conclude this video. Next video number 28 will start with chapter number 27 at Dakshineswar, Sunday, September 7, 1884. Thank you. Namaskar.